Canada is founded upon the principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. As Canadians, we must obey the laws of Canada. The police and Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, enforce these laws and keep people safe. Here in Canada, you can always ask the police for help and guidance, unlike some places where you ask the police and it only brings upon you more trouble. We're so pleased to have with us today Constable Natasha Lutuejo of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Thank you very much for being here. To remind us that Canada is founded on the rule of law, obeying the law, and no one in Canada is above the law. We are all equal. As Canadians, we live in a free and democratic society where individual rights and freedoms are respected. And in turn, as Canadians, we must respect the rights and freedoms of our fellow Canadians. All of this within the boundaries of Canadian law. Brave Canadians fought and thousands died for these rights and freedoms that we hold so dear. The commitment to Canada of our men and women in uniform should never be forgotten or go unrecognized. Canadians have freedoms and choices because of the sacrifices of these tens of thousands, men and women, who fought to make Canada the country that attracted all of you to becoming Canadian. But Canada is not all about fighting and war. And we're very fortunate that, because Canada is the result of a long and large and peaceful history from a colony to a dominion and eventually a strong and vibrant nation that the world knows today. Canadians have rights that people in other countries can only dream. As a Canadian, you have the right to vote, the right to run as a candidate in municipal, provincial, and federal elections. Men and women are equal in every aspect of life and have the opportunity for any job that talent and hard work can obtain. And I'd like to point out the podium, where I think we have a great representation of women in all walks of life. In Canada, you have freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of association. Many, many other freedoms as well. And as a Canadian, you have the right to apply for Canadian passports, one of the most respected passports in the world. In return, Canada asks that you obey the law, vote in elections, serve on a jury when called to do so, and take responsibility for yourselves and your family. Work contributes to personal dignity, self-respect, and to Canada's prosperity. Make an effort to volunteer in your community. Not only is volunteering an excellent way to gain useful skills, but it's also a wonderful way to make contacts and develop friendships. We live in a country that promotes non-discrimination, tolerance, and equality. And we Canadians often take this for granted because it really is part of our everyday lives. But to those of you who have not lived in peaceful, free, and democratic countries, it is really a marvel. All of you have struggled to overcome difficulties in order to enjoy these freedoms and equalities in Canada, and now you have the ability to make so many choices to make a better life for you and your families.
Raise your right hand and repeat the oath after our judge.
Is everyone's right hand raised? If you will repeat after me, please. I swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen. Now, if you'll please remain standing and put your right hand down. Recognizing that Canada is a bilingual country, I invite you to repeat the French version of the Oath of Citizenship after me. This symbolic gesture exemplifies our commitment to respecting Canada's two official languages. These languages are recognized in all institutions of Parliament and the Government of Canada. You have the right to be served in either language, French or English, when you are dealing with the federal government. Now, if you'll again raise your right hand and repeat after me. Je jure que je serai fidèle et porterai sincère allégeance à Sa Majesté, la Reine Elisabeth II, Reine du Canada, et ses héritiers et successeurs, que j'observerai fidèlement les lois du Canada et que je remplirai loyalement mes obligations de citoyen canadien. Félicitations, vous êtes maintenant citoyen du Canada. Congratulations, you're now Canadian citizens in both English and French. We will.
And Brian. Jonathan Cordova. Geo Yan Chin. Millet Kandati. Robert Paul. Erico Hilla. Mohid Adin Ahmed. Marissa Rumbold. The Wang family. Shibang. Lujin. Leon. And Jinhee. Mandy Tor. The Suag family. Zoa Mecca. And Liam. Lieutenant family.
I would like to introduce our first guest speaker for this morning's festivities, the Honorable Member of the Legislative Assembly for Concord and Fort McMurray, Donald Scott.
Congratulations, everyone. It's a really exciting day. You have chosen the best place, in my view, on the planet to become citizens. there's no better place than Fort McMurray in Canada, but there's no better place than Canada in the world, in my view. My wife immigrated to Canada. She'd never even seen snow before, except on mountains, before she came to this country. And a few days after we arrived, there was a giant pile of snow on the ground, and I think she was worried about what she got herself into by marrying a Canadian and moving to Fort McMurray. The time that we've spent here has been excellent. My wife is as involved in this community as I think anyone could be. She teaches music, and she volunteers, and she does other things. This is a great place to make your home. So I hope that many of you will not only become Canadian citizens and take your oath of citizenship at Fort McMurray, but I hope that many of you will get involved in this community and live here for the long term. There's many people that come here for a few years and end up staying for 20 years, but I all want you to stay here for the rest of your lives. This is a tremendous community, and it's a great place for you to get involved. To that end, one thing that I'm going to encourage you all to do is to volunteer in this community. Fort McMurray is known for its generosity, and this whole region is, but one of the things that sometimes people forget is volunteering your time is as important as donating money and doing other things in this region. So please get out and volunteer. It's something that I think makes a big difference to this region, and it's, in my view, it's one of our responsibilities as Canadian citizens is to volunteer and get involved. So please each consider that. The other thing that I would encourage you all to do, as much as I love this region, we haven't done well in one area, and that's voting. We have one of the lowest voter turnout rates in all of Canada. When I tell people that, they're almost shocked. So you all have the right to vote now. And even though the mayor and I are not in an election right now, there are people running an election right now. You're going to have the opportunity to vote in the next few weeks. In fact, we have one of the candidates sitting right over there. He's running this election. Now he's waving his hand. We also have a councillor here, Ellen. He's from Municipal Council. You're going to see us all again when you're on the ballot. But please get out and vote. Encourage your family members to vote, and encourage your children when they get older to vote. It's one of the things I think the Canadians do is they sometimes take that right for granted. And maybe Fort McMurray, they do that more than in other areas. But one of the challenges I think we have is to get people out to vote. And please take that responsibility seriously. You're going to have the opportunity to exercise your first vote as a Canadian citizen in the next few weeks. It's very important. And when I used to go knock on people's doors and encourage them to vote, I'd say, I don't care if you vote for me, but I'd like you to. But what I'd like you to do more than anything is get out and vote. It's how you exercise your rights in a democracy, and it's how you shape this country. Great countries and great provinces don't have laws. They have people to make choices to do certain things. You've all made an important choice to become Canadian citizens. Please also help shape this country now that you're part of it in an official capacity, and help shape the direction of this country by getting out and voting. I can't congratulate you enough. I know this is an emotional day for many of you. My wife took many years through the process, and as I was listening to some of the stories this morning, I know that there's many of you who have been on a very long journey. But really, this is the beginning of a brand new journey for all of you, now that you're citizens. Congratulations. Get out and vote. Get out and volunteer. Thank you for choosing Canada.
Thank you so much for reminding everyone of their responsibilities, the responsibility of voting and the responsibility of volunteering. It is so important and so worthwhile. And I also have to say that I agree with you for McMurray. I think I mentioned to you that I've been in Fort McMurray from 1978 to 1982, and I came back last year and was just amazed at the beauty and the growth of this community. So thank you very much for having us here, all of you, to share your happiness in this beautiful city. Next, I would like to introduce, and it's my pleasure to preside over 4 previous ceremonies with her worship, Melissa Blake. And today will be so pleased that she has been able to attend all 3 ceremonies that we've had in Fort McMurray. Thank you so much for doing that for us.
Well, thank you, and good morning, distinguished guests, my council colleague, Councillor Vinnie, candidate Kyle Harriet in the room with you, which is a unique privilege actually to get to know somebody before you actually have to put your selections down on the ballot sheet. But for me, standing before you, I'm not going down the voting path, no sir. I don't have an election and I don't have to worry about that for sometime into the future if I vote out again. But the beautiful thing is that you as Canadian citizens do have those privileges now. Sharing this moment with new Canadian citizens is something that I treat as a priority. And I've been to as many of these ceremonies as I possibly could be able to since I got elected in 2004. And every single ceremony has its own uniqueness, but it's each and every single hand that I shake going across that stage. When I look at the audience, I look at each of you, and I'm not seeing what you represent on the surface. I'm seeing what you represented in your past and what you represent for our future. When we look at Buffalo, we look at the incredible multiculturalism that's here. We know that people come because we're a region that's blessed with rich resources under the ground. But I say those resources are not our greatest resource. Our greatest resource is always our people. And that's what each of you are, and each of the guests in the audience represent that to me too. But one of the things that I have to understand as an elected official trying to make decisions on behalf of the citizens of this region is what is it that brings people here? What is it that keeps people here? And what is it that brings us all together in ways that are positive and enriching and fulfilling for our community and for the future of our children? And so it doesn't matter if you've come to this community from another province, new country, if you were born and raised here, or if you're coming from another part of the world. Every journey has a story. And I have my own stories, but they're kind of murky. I'm part Aboriginal and part European, and I'm part out of that because it was so many generations ago. I'm just Canadian. But I love the stories of new Canadians, of people who I get to interface with. And I'm just going to share one with you from 2 days ago now. I was supposed to be going to Edmonton for an event, and it's a wonderful event. We were going to be recognizing a Métis elder, which is an Aboriginal elder, 96 years old, and the University of Alberta, which is a pretty esteemed university, was going to acknowledge her as a doctorate of law. So she hadn't done the coursework, but she had lived a life that made them want to honor her that way. So pretty proud of that. Got on the airplane and I got grounded. The fog in Edmonton was too thick and I wasn't able to get up and off the ground. They were going to delay my flight by 30 minutes, and I knew that I was on a countdown, and if I couldn't get into the ceremony before it started, there was really no point in being able to try to continue the journey. I got off that plane, and they let me, that was nice. They gave me credit for my flight, that was nice too. But I was also going to be a very responsible mayor, and I was going to take the transit so I could get downtown because I had to drop off at the airport. And while I was waiting for the transit, yes, I fell for the $100 skin cream the lady at the door sold me, and I still wanted to take the transit, but I didn't want to buy any more skin cream, and when I couldn't see the transit coming anytime soon, there was an individual who was working at the airport that was on his way out the door, and he recognized me, and he says, "Would you like to have a ride?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm waiting for the transit. I want to be a very responsible mayor." He says, "My name is Mo, and I have a minivan. It's a very dirty minivan, but you're welcome to come with me if you'd like. I'm going downtown." Rule number 1, don't take a ride with strangers. When I got back to the office, my staff gave me a lot of grief because I rode with somebody I didn't actually know. I am so delighted that I did, because when I was leaving and going into the messy minivan with my new friend Mo, we got to have a conversation. And Mo was short for Mohammed, and he had come from Lebanon. And the first question that I asked him was, "So, were you at the air show last weekend?" "We're at the airport." "Of course I'm going to ask that." Turns out, yes, he was. And it started a conversation about his journey to Canada and what his life was before he came to Canada. And he talked about the incredible show, of course, but the most amazing thing to him was the Hornet C, was it the F-18, I'm not even familiar with the planes enough to say, but I think it was the F-18 Hornet. And when it came down, my children were there, and they were covering their ears, and it was a delight for everybody because it was a big, loud machine. And he said for him, he was so excited because for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of a plane coming down in his space. In his home country, those planes would come down with the intent of terrorizing the folks in the street. They were great to sound barrier, and he explained the impacts of that. He had 3 children, and he came to Canada in 1992, started in another part of Canada, came to Fort McMurray. I'm like, "You're crazy, why'd you come to Fort McMurray? It's so expensive here. how did she ever get the ability to move into the community? So we continued with his story, and he talked about having people who had come here before him, able to share space with cousins and folks that he had known, but ultimately that wasn't his destination. His destination was to be self-sustaining, to ensure that his family had their needs met. And he was delighted to tell me about the barber shops that he was a part of, that he became a partner in, that he had just bought his first house in Fort McMurray. And to me, that says it all. That says that the incredible persistence that this individual had undertaken, not only to come to Canada, to become a Canadian citizen, to become a participant in our Fort McMurray economy, was now starting to pay off for him. He says, yes, I have to get up to here. But he is so quintessential to what I see amongst the folks in this room. When I think about some of the histories that many of you may have experienced, they go beyond my realm of reality. I can't even imagine. But that you chose to come here to this community to make a new life. I need you to know that you have nothing but the ability to persevere and to become the success that you want on your terms. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how you got here. It doesn't matter what religion you have. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter if your sexual orientation is different than others. You are a Canadian citizen. You are welcome, and you are my delight in being able to represent this community of multiculturalism, peace, unity, and the ability for all to succeed on their own terms. I want to thank you for allowing me some time with you today, and I hope you will become the best Canadian citizens ever. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. It's true, in Canada you can be whoever you are.